Gretchen. This is part 3 of day 5.5 in the servant program. Today we're going to talk about paradoxical last results. When we engage in last desire obtainment processes, we are often pushed to the edges of our northwest and northeast thresholds in the beginning. This is indeed painful and sorrowful because we're pushed to our fear and depression limits throughout strengthening and healing processes. Describe the discomfort you have experienced during your last desire obtainment processes. It is especially difficult to maintain our balance when trials and adversity, things that are outside of our control, hit us. When this happens, our last causes generally offer last northeast effects in order to enable us to stay within our northwest threshold. Describe a past trial or adversity that threatened to push you past your northwest threshold. What last northeast effects did you experience? How did they enable you to stay within your northwest threshold? What were your results after the trial ended? And how have you been able to distinguish between first and last northeast effects? When first causes entrap us before we even know better, we remain susceptible to their bait, their effects, even after we know better. Their northeast effects become virulently tempting. This is an adversity in itself. If we don't engage in continuous strengthening processes that reinforce our boundaries against first causes, and also increase our sensitivity to last causes, these first effects will continue to have too much power over us. So we won't be able to resist them. In your desire obtainment process, what specific first effects tempt you the most? And which physical and spiritual strengthening processes can you engage in to build up your boundaries against these effects? Which last causes can you depend upon? When we engage in the strengthening process continuously, it is preventative. But because this is our first time living our life, and that fact subsequently defines our life as a learning process, we are going to end up with physical and spiritual injuries. That's just the way that it is. That's why we also need the healing process, which is reparative. Preventative strengthening processes are times of preparation, training, and study. These increase our threshold strength, so when we're hit with adversity that's outside of our control, we're not forced past our northwest threshold. Prevention then serves as a northeast effect during times of adversity, but these effects are given to us in advance. Reparative healing processes are times of regrouping, evaluation, and reconstruction. These enable us to return to balanced threshold processing. Reparation then serves as northwest effects when we're going through northeast healing processes that are, past our northeast threshold. And those times of forced inactivity where we're bored to tears. A lot of us, can't stand being down. Well, these effects, these reconstruction, regrouping, evaluating effects enable us to experience northwest effects even though we're down. In your desire obtainment process, when do you take time to prepare, train, and study with your last cause? When do you take time to regroup, evaluate, and reconstruct with him? Which specific physical and spiritual strengths do you need to obtain in order to achieve your goals? What is the process to obtain those strengths? Which specific physical and spiritual abilities do you need to regain in order to achieve your goals? And which of your causes can assist you with that? The greater our desire, the longer we are required to endure within our threshold despite the adversity. This is why we need to spend plenty of time in the strengthening and healing processes. The longer and more exact we can maintain our balance within our threshold, despite the adversity and forced inactivity, the more our effect sensors increase in sensitivity to our general last causes effects. Also, this is the maintenance process that incrementally builds our effect sensor boundaries against conflicting first causes effects. What is the height of your desire? How intensely do you experience adversity that is outside of your control? How much forced inactivity have you been required to endure? What is your inherent balance? What are you doing to increase your threshold strength? Our general last causes effects are sustainable to the intensity level we desire to experience. Paradoxically, we don't experience the desired level in the beginning, especially if we have already obtained first results. Our effect sensors are already numb or scattered. We're in that trap. It takes time and a lot of faith in our general last cause and in the general paradoxical last process he advocates. But in the end, the effects we experience are completely and utterly satisfying. So take a look at your figure 7, Northern Paradoxical Results, Sustainable Effect Intensity. We're monitoring the sustainability of our effects. And along the horizontal axis, down here at the bottom, this is the continuous last desire obtainment process. Along the vertical axis, we see the desired level of effect intensity. So say at the beginning, we experience X degree of effects. And they're probably not exactly what we want. But over time, as we engage in this last desire obtainment process, the promise is that they will increase in intensity to our desired level. What do you know about your general last cause? What do you know about the paradoxical last desire obtainment process he advocates? How have you increased your knowledge of him in the past? How has this sustained you through the paradoxical last processes you have already gone through? As previously stated, when we continuously engage in a last desire obtainment process, it is northwest, northeast threshold hard in the beginning. But incrementally, the forces of the paradox overtake the initial sorrow and pain we experience. In last results, we develop an increased knowledge to process in dynamic balance in the face of the adversity or the forced inactivity we have been experiencing. We apply this general knowledge to any specific process we need to engage in the future. With it, we have a greater degree of skill to find where that balance is in physical as well as spiritual relationships. In this way, we obtain specific knowledge, abilities, strengths, and talents. We become a greater last cause and are filled with last desire. Let's look at figure 8. Northern paradoxical results, knowledge and abilities. So in the last figure, we were evaluating the sustainability of the effects we experience. And now here we're going to evaluate the sustainability of our process, which by definition is an ability. Along the horizontal axis, we see again that indicates the continuous last desire obtainment process. Along the vertical axis, we see that is the ability to sacrifice. That's what we're monitoring. So in the beginning, low represents our baseline state. And over time, as we endure to the end, that ability increases. And high represents a higher ability to sacrifice. In your desire obtainment process, what general knowledge have you obtained? Have you applied this general knowledge to the specific knowledge and abilities you desire to obtain? What specific knowledge have you obtained? What specific abilities have you obtained? How have you likened or compared the specific processes you engaged in to obtain that specific knowledge or ability, and the specific effects you experienced in that obtainment process to identify more effectively the general desire obtainment process? Before we leave day 5.5, I just wanted to once again reiterate, if I hadn't said it enough, that we end up in results and in habits before we even have time to choose our process for ourselves. We were raised by first causes, so we end up processing like them because we have followed them inadvertently, inherently, and so we end up processing in a first desire obtainment process and ending with first results. The issue is that all of us are not perfectly balanced. So all of us engage in first desire obtainment process. It's just the way that it is. And so that's true of our parents. That's true of our teachers. That's true of our friends. Anyone that there is to influence us, that has influenced us as we have grown up. We most likely have plenty of first desire obtainment process habits in us already with all of their results. That's just not happiness. When our affect sensors are numbed or scattered, or we have inabilities and weaknesses. But we want to be careful not to look around and at other people who have first results. I see that person's injured. He probably did that to himself. we don't want to do that, because we're going to be injured too. It's just the way it is. And maybe it was something that he did, but we don't know where exactly the cause was of that. Or how far back did it go in his, how he was raised, how his parents were raised. There's just no sense in trying to find, who's to blame. And judge righteous judgment, which is to evaluate it. And okay, yes, if we're feeling toxic shame about it, then we do need to see, okay, this can't be all my fault. It's important to objectively look at, yes, I was raised this way, and maybe my parents were raised that way themselves. But on the other hand, we could be, prideful and just, kind of blame everything on everybody else. And in that sense, we need to back up and say, what, I have a choice now to myself. And because a general last cause exists, at least he exists, then I am able to get out of these bondages. I'm able to get out of these traps, regardless of where they came. I have a choice. I've been given my agency because of him. This is the first time we're all, going through this life. We never had a body before. So as we continue in a process that has hitherto been balanced for us, as we age, there's a point that that process no longer is balanced. It's actually, past our northwest threshold. Those are shifts in our state that we can't control, and we very well might be injured at one of those crossroads as things change. And those are the alerts that let us know, hey, you're no longer, you know 20 years old anymore. You've got to recognize that this is a condition that comes upon us all. To summarize, let's not judge ourselves or other people harshly. Let's look at the situation objectively.